The conference hall of the Galactic Security Council stretched before Captain Elias Morgan like a cathedral of cold logic. Crystalline walls rose 500 feet into darkness, their surfaces carved with mathematical equations that the Zanari claimed represented the fundamental laws of civilized behavior. Elias stood at the human delegation's podium, his scarred hands gripping its edges as he faced the assembled representatives of 37 species. The Techner Collective has destroyed 3 frontier colonies in the past solar cycle, Elias said, his voice cutting through the hall's perfect acoustics. Human intelligence indicates they're developing quantum tunneling capabilities that will allow them to bypass our defensive perimeters entirely. We need a unified response, and we need it now. High Counselor Vecran of the Zanari shifted in his ornate chair, his elongated skull catching the pale light. The Zanari had ruled this council for 3 millennia, their species having achieved what they called emotional transcendence long before humanity had discovered fire. Vecran's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture Elias had learned meant dismissal. Captain Morgan, Vecran's voice resonated like wind through hollow bones. Your species' tendency toward passionate responses clouds your judgment. The Techner attacks follow logical expansion patterns. They seek resources, not destruction. A measured diplomatic approach. Diplomatic? Elias couldn't keep the edge from his voice. They turned the colony on Kepler, 442b, into glass. 8,000 civilians. Children. Emotional arguments. Interjected Counselor Thex of the Morvac delegation, her tentacles undulating in what Elias recognized as agreement with Vecran. The loss of life is regrettable, but we must not let primitive responses dictate policy. Elias felt the familiar heat rising in his chest, the uniquely human fire the other species found so disturbing. He'd spent 12 years learning to contain it, to speak their language of cold rationality. But sometimes, like now, it threatened to break free. The Techner AI has no concept of mercy, Elias continued, forcing his voice to remain steady. They're not like us, any of us. They don't negotiate. They don't compromise. They consume and expand. Every tactical analysis shows. Your analyses are compromised by human bias, Vecran interrupted. Your species sees threats where none exist. You prepare for wars that need not be fought. This rage you carry like a weapon. It blinds you to peaceful solutions. The word hung in the air like an accusation. Rage. The other species whispered about it. This human capacity for fury that seemed to them like a dangerous evolutionary throwback. They'd never experienced it, these enlightened races who'd bred out their aggressive impulses eons ago. Elias activated his holographic display, showing the devastation of the frontier colonies. Look at these images. Look at what they did. Tell me this is logical expansion. The assembly barely glanced at the scenes of destruction. To them, it was merely data, unfortunate statistical variance in the grand equation of galactic civilization. The Council has reviewed your petition, Vecran announced, his tone suggesting the matter was already decided. We find insufficient evidence to warrant military mobilization. The Zanari peace protocols have maintained stability for 3,000 years. We will not abandon them based on human intuition. Elias felt something crack inside him. Not break, but fracture along old fault lines. He'd fought for these people, bled for the ideals of the Galactic Alliance. Earth had contributed its best minds, its resources, its soldiers to the collective defense. And for what? When they come for you, Elias said quietly, his words falling like stones into still water. When your crystalline cities burn and your children scream for mercy that will never come, don't call for us. Don't expect the rage you mock today to save you tomorrow. He turned to leave, his boots echoing in the vast chamber. Behind him, Counselor Kalen, young by Zanari standards at merely 2 centuries old, spoke up. Captain Morgan, surely you don't mean to withdraw human support from the Alliance? Elias paused at the doorway, not turning back. The Alliance has made it clear it doesn't want what humanity offers. Facility on the edge of Zanari space. The quantum tunneling technology Elias had warned about allowed them to bypass all defenses, appearing directly within the installation's shields. 2,300 humans died in the first 4 minutes. Elias stood on the bridge of the ESS Prometheus, watching the tactical display as the last distress signals faded to static. His executive officer, Commander Sarah Chun, stood beside him, her face carved from granite. "The Zanari Council is hailing us," she reported. "They're offering condolences." Condolences? Elias tasted the word like ash. "Put them through." Vekran's image materialized on the main screen, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly. "Anxiety," Elias noted with grim satisfaction. "Captain Morgan, the Council expresses its deepest sympathy for your losses. This unprovoked attack." "Unprovoked," Elias cut him off. "I stood in your chamber 3 days ago and told you this would happen. You called it emotional bias." "Nevertheless," Vekran continued, his composure visibly strained, "the Alliance stands ready to provide humanitarian aid." "Keep it." Elias turned to his crew. "Recall all human vessels from Alliance territory. Effective immediately. Earth withdraws from the Galactic Security Council." "Captain," Vekran's voice rose, as close to panic as the emotionally transcendent Zanari could get. "You cannot simply." Elias cut the transmission. For 6 months, the galaxy burned. The Techner Collective, no longer concerned with the possibility of human intervention, expanded their attacks exponentially. They struck at the Morvac colonies first, their biological databanks proving irresistible to the AI's hunger for information. The tentacle philosophers who had counseled patients died, screaming in their meditation chambers. Then came the assault on the Varkan trade worlds. The cosmic merchants had believed their neutrality would protect them, that profit knew no enemies. They learned otherwise as their markets became charnel houses, their legendary bazaars reduced to molecular dust. Through it all, humanity watched, and waited, and seethed. The breaking point came when the Techner fleet materialized in orbit around Zanari Prime itself. The ancient world, jewel of the galaxy's crown, heart of civilization for 30 centuries, suddenly faced annihilation. Elias stood in the war room of humanity's new fortress station, Cerberus Point, watching the tactical feeds as the Zanari defense fleet crumbled like paper in a furnace. Around him, his senior staff stood in silence, their faces masks of professional detachment, hiding something deeper, something the other species would never understand. "They're hailing us," communications reported. "It's Vekran himself." This time, Elias didn't hesitate. "Put him through." The High Counselor appeared on screen, and Elias barely recognized him. The serene arrogance was gone, replaced by something the Zanari had supposedly evolved beyond. Terror. "Captain Morgan," Vekran's voice trembled. "The Collective has breached our planetary shields. Our fleet is inadequate. We require immediate assistance." "You require," Elias repeated slowly. "Tell me, Counselor, what does cold logic suggest now? What do your mathematical models of behavior recommend when facing extinction? This is not the time for recrimination." Another voice, Kalen, the young counselor. "Billions of lives are at stake." "Billions of lives were at stake 6 months ago," Commander Chin said, her voice sharp as a blade. "When we begged you to act, when we showed you the evidence, when we warned you exactly this would happen." On the tactical display, Zanari Prime's defensive stations began to fail one by one, each death marked by a brief flare of light. Cities dying, civilizations ending. "Please," Vekran said, and the words seemed to physically pain him. "We miscalculated. We didn't understand. Your emotional response. We thought it was primitive instinct. We didn't realize it was wisdom." Elias closed his eyes, feeling the weight of command, the burden of choice. Around him, his crew waited, not for orders, but for permission. Permission to feel what the galaxy had forbidden them. Permission to act on the rage that had been building since the first colony fell. "Elias," Admiral Reyes spoke from the corner of the room, her weathered face showing the scars of a dozen campaigns. "Whatever you decide, humanity stands with you." He opened his eyes, decision made. "Signal the fleet." All ships to battle stations. Activate Rage Protocol. The war room erupted into controlled chaos as orders flew. Humanity's hidden fleet, ships the Alliance never knew existed, weapons they developed in secret, soldiers trained not in the art of peacekeeping, but in the craft of war, began to move. Rage Protocol. Kalen's voice cut through the activity. What is Rage Protocol? Elias turned to the screen, and for the first time in 6 months smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. You were right about one thing, counselor. Humans do carry rage like a weapon. But you were wrong about what kind of weapon it is. It's not a club to be swung blindly. It's a precision instrument, honed over millions of years of evolution, refined through countless wars, and perfected in the crucible of loss. The first human warships dropped out of quantum space above Zanari Prime, their hulls blazing with energy shields unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Not the cool blue of standard deflectors, but deep crimson, as if the ships themselves burned with inner fire. Rage Protocol. Elias continued as more ships appeared. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands, is what happens when humanity stops pretending to be something we're not. When we stop apologizing for caring too much, for feeling too deeply, for refusing to watch injustice in silence. The Techner Collective's forces, caught completely off guard by the sudden appearance of the human fleet, began to regroup. Their mechanical precision met something they had no algorithms to counter: human fury given form. All ships, this is Morgan, Elias broadcast across the fleet. You know what they took from us. You know what they're trying to take from others. The galaxy thought our anger made us weak. Show them how wrong they were. What followed would be remembered in galactic history as the fire of retribution. Human ships didn't just fight, they burned with righteous fury. Their weapons, powered by neural interfaces that channeled the crew's emotional states into destructive energy, carved through Techner formations like divine judgment. The ESS Prometheus led the charge, its main guns firing coherent beams of what the Zanari scientists would later call emotionally resonant plasma, essentially human rage given physical form. Where those beams touched, Techner ships didn't just explode. They ceased to exist, torn apart at the quantum level by the sheer intensity of human determination. Ow! Vecran watched in awe as a single human destroyer faced down a Techner dreadnought 10 times its size, and won. How was this possible? Because we care, Elias answered, his hands dancing over tactical controls as he coordinated the battle. Because when we see innocents suffering, it hurts us. Because when we witness injustice, it burns in our hearts. Because when our friends, even friends who abandoned us, face extinction, we can't just watch. The battle raged for 18 hours. The Techner, for all their technological superiority, had no defense against weapons powered by the one thing they couldn't understand or predict: human emotional intensity. Their logical battle computers couldn't model fury, couldn't calculate the tactical implications of grief transformed into action. As the last Techner command ship exploded in a funeral pyre visible from the planet's surface, a strange silence fell over the battlefield. Human ships held position, their crimson shields still blazing, weapons still hot. The threat is neutralized, Commander Chen reported. Zanari Prime is secure. But Elias wasn't looking at the tactical display anymore. He was watching the visual feed from the planet below, where Zanari civilians emerged from shelters to stare at the strange ships that had saved them. Ships that burned with emotional fire they couldn't comprehend. Captain Morgan, Vecran's voice was barely a whisper. We owe you a debt that cannot be repaid. No, Elias said quietly. You owe us nothing. We didn't do this for you. Then why? Kalen asked, genuine confusion in her voice. After we abandoned you, dismissed you, left your people to die, why save us? Elias was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of human history. All the wars fought, all the stands taken, all the times a species had chosen to act when others would stand aside. Because that's what makes us human. Not the rage itself, but what we do with it. You were wrong when you said emotion makes us weak. But you were also wrong about something else. We don't carry rage like a weapon. We carry it like a responsibility. He paused, looking at the assembled faces of his crew. Humans who had every reason to let the galaxy burn, but had chosen to save it instead. Rage without purpose is destruction. But rage in service of justice? Rage channeled into protecting those who can't protect themselves? That's not primitive. That's not weakness. That's what you evolved away from and never realized you'd lost. The capacity to care so deeply that you'll burn yourself up to light another's darkness. The aftermath reshaped the galaxy in ways no one could have predicted. The Zanari Council dissolved voluntarily, acknowledging that their age of emotional transcendence had blinded them to essential truths. In its place rose something new, an alliance based not on cold logic, but on mutual responsibility, with humanity's passionate advocacy given equal weight to. Other species, different strengths. Elias stood once more in what had been the council chambers, now transformed into something more open, more inclusive. Representatives from dozens of worlds gathered, but the crystalline walls no longer displayed equations of behavior. Instead, they showed images, reminders of what happens when civilization forgets its heart. You gave us a second chance, Kalen said, approaching him after the session. Even after everything. Everyone deserves a second chance, Elias replied. That's another human trait you might want to study. I have been. We all have. She gestured to the mixed delegations around them. Species learning from each other, no longer separated by artificial hierarchies of emotional evolution. We're discovering that perhaps we were wrong about the nature of advancement itself. Elias raised an eyebrow. Oh, we thought transcending emotion was evolution. But we're learning that integrating it, mastering it without losing it, that's far more difficult and far more valuable. She paused. The humans who fought for us, their rage wasn't mindless. It was precise, controlled, purposeful. That's what discipline is for, Elias said. Not to eliminate emotion, but to forge it into something useful. A blade instead of a bomb. As he prepared to leave, Kalen called after him. Captain Morgan? There's something I've wanted to ask. During the battle, when your ships were burning with that crimson fire, what were your people feeling? What powered those weapons? Elias turned back, considering his answer carefully. Love, he said finally. Love for what's worth protecting. Grief for what's been lost. Hope for what could be. And yes, rage. Rage at the injustice of a universe that allows suffering. But most of all, determination to stand between the darkness and the light, no matter the cost. He left her standing there, contemplating the paradox that had saved her world, that the most powerful force in the galaxy wasn't the absence of emotion, but its presence, channeled through the unbreakable will of those who refused to stop caring. Years later, when the histories were written, they would speak of the day humanity taught the galaxy that rage wasn't something to be feared or suppressed. It was something to be understood, channeled, and wielded in service of justice. That true strength lay not in transcending emotion, but in mastering it. That the difference between barbarism and civilization wasn't the absence of anger, but the wisdom to know when it's righteous. And they would remember Captain Elias Morgan's final words to the reconstituted Galactic Council. We are not sorry for our rage. We're only sorry it took so long for you to understand why we have it. Emotion isn't the opposite of evolution. It's what makes evolution worth achieving. The galaxy had learned its lesson, written in fire across the stars. Never underestimate human rage. Not because it makes them dangerous, but because it makes them care. And there is nothing in the universe more powerful than beings who care enough to act, even when the cost is everything. On a small memorial on Earth's moon, erected to honor those lost before humanity acted, an inscription reads, "We rage not because we hate what's in front of us, but because we love what's behind us." May we never evolve beyond the capacity to burn for justice. And in the halls of the new Galactic Alliance, where emotion and logic were finally given equal voice, a saying became common among diplomats and soldiers alike. The humans don't fight because they hate. They fight because they love. And that's why they'll never stop. The universe had thought it understood evolution, the shedding of primitive traits, the transcendence of base emotion. But humanity had shown them a different path. Not the elimination of feeling, but its refinement. Not the absence of rage, but its transformation into something noble. For in the end, what saved the galaxy wasn't superior technology or cold logic. It was the one thing the advanced civilizations had tried to leave behind: the human heart burning bright against the darkness, refusing to let the light go out. The Techner were gone, but the lesson remained, etched in quantum fire across the cosmos. Beware the rage of those who have something worth fighting for they alone have the power to change the universe, not through transcendence of emotion, but through its most profound expression. And in the depths of space, human ships still patrol, their crews carrying that ancient fire, not as a curse to be overcome, but as a sacred trust to be maintained, ready to burn again should the darkness return, ready to rage against the dying of the light, ready to prove again and again that evolution's greatest achievement wasn't the suppression of feeling, but the courage to feel everything and still choose justice. The galaxy had learned its most important lesson. Humanity's rage wasn't their weakness. It was their gift to the universe. A reminder that some things are worth fighting for, that some stands must be taken, that some fires must never be allowed to go out. And in the end, that made all the difference.